Good morning, YouTube. Are you ready for part 2 of Buddy's story? Go ahead and get a couple tissues. Now, I think I'm aptly medicated to make this video without crying my eyes out. I got you guys to the point where he was a year old with the first video. I don't know how to provide anyone who hasn't seen it yet a link, but if you go to my page and you look under the uploads, you'll see Buddy's story part 1. I would advise watching that first. If you're a newcomer, I have a son who is going to be 21 in 17 days and a wake up, and he has Down syndrome. He's Buddy G, and he's larger than life and an awesome kid. Young man. Yes, this requires a cigarette. When Buddy turned 1, I had stopped breastfeeding him for less than 2 weeks. Within a month of him being off the ninny, I started to have a complete come apart. Now, at the time, they did not have the diagnosis called postpartum psychosis. And even, later when I found out what that was, people in the medical field tried to argue it and say it's not possible for you to have that, a year after your child's born. And I still cried bullshit on that, because it was the chemicals, the hormones and everything that I was making that were keeping me in that good mindset. And when my body readjusted and didn't have those chemicals anymore, I had a complete nervous breakdown. So there were a couple of extenuating circumstances. My very best friend in the world, her baby only lived 9 days. That happened. Daniel turned 1 in August. I started having a nervous breakdown in September. November rolls around, my best friend's baby dies, and pretty much everything's kind of a blur until about February of the following year. So we're just going to go with that part, with that part of my mental health. At any rate, Daniel was never a sick baby. He never got a cold, he never had an earache, nothing, until he was 2.5. And this is in February of 2000. He gets a cold, or rather a virus. Now, me and his dad both caught it. We were sick for a week. He was sick for somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks with it. He also had developed some little red spots, like tiny blood freckles. We carried him to the doctor at least a half a dozen times inquiring about this, only to be blown off, nobody doing lab work or anything. Well, okay. March 31st of 2000, he was playing at his grandparents' house on the porch swing with his aunt. He had on little cute blue jeans, and she went to push him back, and he slid out and dropped 6 feet, roughly. When he landed, he twisted on that right foot, and it broke his right femur in half. It was not a straight across cut. He did not, it did not go through the skin. It was just kind of like a zigzag. I don't know how to explain it, except imagine a lightning bolt, if you will. So we take him, and he's put in a body cast for 6 weeks. Now that was tough. That was tough, but we made it through, and it was amazing how well he recovered from that. He was in the body cast for 6 weeks. During this time, God tells me my mom has lung cancer. I'm like, okay, we handled that. She did have lung cancer. She had lung cancer surgery. Now, we stopped by to visit, and Daniel is walking around. Since he's out of that body cast, he's walking in his little walker, and my mom's all jacked up on morphine, out of her head on morphine, And she looks at me and she's like, Terry, something's wrong with Daniel. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong with Daniel. I was like, okay. Well, his daddy took him for his 1 month checkup out of the body cast. And that would have been probably around late May or early June. And I got a phone call that day. I had gotten home from work. His dad called from a payphone, and he's like, I have something I want to tell you, but it needs to wait till I get home. And I'm like, yeah, I have something I need to tell you too. I was waiting on him to get home to tell him, look, our marriage is over. I'm divorcing you. I'm leaving. He got home, and he was like, what did you want to tell me? And I was like, you first. And he said, Daniel has leukemia. Yeah, I literally hit the floor. You can't imagine the flood of emotions. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Statistically, Down syndrome children are 27% more likely to get leukemia than you or I. He tried to hand me the baby. I'm freaking out. I'm cussing at God. I'm screaming at God. I'm giving God the bird, and Chuck's trying to hand me our kid, and I'm like, get that thing away from me. Don't touch me. Everything I touch turns to shit. I couldn't even make an okay baby. Get the fuck away from me. And he's crying, Chuck's crying, the baby's crying, I'm crying, it's horrible. And he's like, I don't have the strength to carry you both. Please get up. And I got up, and we went to Children's Hospital. They were waiting for us. Yeah, he had leukemia, all right. My 2.5-year-old had leukemia. Come to find out, that was how he was able to break his leg. You know, baby bones are kind of like rubber. They don't break very easily. So it was called a sympathetic fracture. He starts chemo. They tell us if we can get him into remission within the first, it was an odd number, 12 days, then he'll have better than, a 95% chance of recovery. It was 13 days. They put him in remission on the 12th day, or rather, he went into remission on the 12th day. It was the day before my birthday. And only after he went into remission did they tell us there was less than a 20% chance that would happen. But my kid's amazing. My kid is so amazing that from the time, that 12th day when he went into remission, he never had another live cancer cell. He got treatment for 2.5 years. That brings us up to him being 5.5. I'm going to leave it at that because part 3 is going to start amping it up a little bit. Thank you guys for watching. Shout out to my son, Buddy G. He is a warrior. I love you guys. Smooches and deuces.